What's up, babies? Today I'm going to be talking about what I would like to see in the first operation. By the time this video comes out, the major is probably going to be over. Spoilers, but here's who won. Click ahead 5 seconds to not see this starting now. Good job, guys. You did it. Alright, you can open your eyes again. Now that the major is over, we can finally start thinking about and talking about the first operation and the first major update of the game. And before we get into it, just want to say, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be yapping about stuff more in the future. I kind of enjoy it. Second, like the video if you enjoy these kinds of videos. And third, comment down below. Let me know what you think about the operation, what y'all might expect or want. And more or less what I'm going to be focusing on is not what I'm expecting to be in the update or the operation. I'm kind of just spitballing a bunch of stuff that I would really like to see. I would be pleasantly surprised if it was there. I'm not going to have my heart broken if none of these show up, however. One or two might happen, and enough yapping about that. Let's get into the video. First thing I want to talk about is the potential of new guns. Whenever CS2 came out, Valve had did a couple interviews talking about, oh, we might want to do more weapons in CS2 than we did in Go. We're definitely going to add more weapons. Other than the MP5, the last weapon that Valve introduced was the R8 revolver, and that was a nightmare. And I believe they've learned their lesson with the nightmare the R8 was and how underwhelming the MP5 was. I think the next weapon Valve introduces might be like a meta full buy weapon, and what I would like to see in that case is something like an M14 if you're more familiar with COD, or a Guardian if you're familiar with Valorant. I haven't played since the beta, but I know it's there. And if Valve are going to continue biting stuff off of Valorant like MR12 and the buy menu and selling a misbought weapon, just go full tilt in copying Valorant and slap a red dot sight on that thing. I think it would be really fun. It would be for both sides. I would place it around 2,500 bucks. I think it would just be a lot more interesting if CT side could buy a weapon that could one tap. It would have a really slow fire rate, so it's not like a spammable thing. The way I think about it is like a really souped up deagle for the most part. Next weapon I'd like to see added into the game, could be a new weapon, could be just like an overhaul of an existing weapon, is a new SMG that could go in the same slot as the P90, but it have like a lower fire rate and be more built for mid-range. When brainstorming about this particular gun, I was trying to think of what SMGs exist in video game lore and real life, of course, that could fill that kind of niche, and I couldn't think of like a particular one that isn't already in the game. So if you have any suggestions for like an SMG that could fit this role that doesn't already exist in Counter-Strike, hit me up in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Like a mid-range gun around 2,500 as well, but an SMG, I think it would be really interesting just to have more diversity in full buys. Like if you've lost 2 or 3 in a row and your loss bonus hasn't built up a lot, but you still need a full buy because it's an appropriate round to do that, having a cheaper option that isn't the FAMAS on CT side, because the FAMAS sucks currently. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I was also thinking, like, if there isn't already a gun in Counter-Strike that doesn't fill that niche, I think it would be interesting, jumping into the buffs and nerfs section of the video, I think it would be interesting if the UMP got that like a crazy overhaul, because this is me kind of showing my age as a CSGO old head, not like a 1.6 old head. I kind of missed the UMP full buy meta. I thought it was interesting whenever people would, on the first round of overtime in Global Offensive, bought UMP because mid-range it was effective. You could kind of pretend it was a rifle sometimes. I think if you leaned further in that direction, got rid of the kill bonus like the P90, it'd be a very interesting thing for struggle full buy rounds. First nerf I want to talk about is the MP9. I think everyone who's been watching the major has understood that the MP9 just kind of feels a little too overtuned for what it's supposed to be doing and for how cheap it is. It's the cheapest fully automatic primary option for the CT side, and on top of it being the cheapest, it's also one of the stronger like struggle full buy weapons. So to adjust this, I think either lowering the fire rate so it's like gutted a little bit more mid-range, lowering the accuracy like a little bit so mid-range you can't like land those one taps because it's kind of strong at landing your first bullet. Everything after that's a nightmare. Or you just make it $100 or $150 more expensive, maybe lower the fire rate like a tiny bit. I don't think like making it an awful gun is appropriate, but it's just too strong for what it's trying to be in the meta currently. Next buff, I hinted at this earlier. I think the FAMAS really deserves a really strong buff. Me predicting the FAMAS buff is kind of hedging my bet with the M14 thing. They kind of fill the same role, in my opinion, for what I'm suggesting. I think it would be more interesting if the FAMAS was a little bit more accurate mid to long range, if it did a little bit more damage, the damage drop-off wasn't as high, and it wall-banged a little better. That would be really interesting. I also think the burst mode could be utilized a lot better. I think it would be very interesting if there was, like, in the top 10 pro teams in Counter-Strike, if there was like 2 or 3, 4 maybe, like really strong FAMAS specialists that could land a FAMAS 1 burst from really any range, whether it be 2 headshots. I think it would be really interesting if the FAMAS could consistently land 1 bursts on a full buy, and if the FAMAS got that kind of buff, I wouldn't be too crazy upset if it got a little bit more expensive just to like justify it being that much stronger. But with how it is right now, if you're on a full buy and you can't afford M4 and nades, it's just a lot more reasonable to buy an MP9 and nades, because just close range, that's where the FAMAS kind of is good, but the MP9 is just so much stronger and half the price. The first like kind of neutral adjustment, not neutral, but like it's a buff and a nerf on top of each other. I'd like to see molly damage be like a little bit more consistent, so it does more at the very beginning and the scaling doesn't go as high at the end. I'm just kind of tired of people walking directly through the start of Molotovs, my games and pro games. It's just like people have stopped respecting utility, and I think utility needs to be given a little bit more gumption. On top of the adjustment to the damage on mollies, I'd like to see them be a little bit smaller. If you're familiar with throwing a lot of utility and banana on Inferno, you know that the Molotov in Inferno, there are a couple lineups that you can do that lands at the broom and logs, and it just touches everything in that corner. And if you're not prepared with a smoke to put it out, you're going to lose like 70 health because there's no corner for you to hide. And if you run out in front of the Molotov, you could get shot from car or get hit with an HE. I think like not like a crazy big percentage number making it smaller area wise, but like 10%, nothing like ridiculous. I think it's a lot healthier for the game that the spread is more consistent into, but how big it is just like kind of ridiculous. Kind of. Next utility change I want to look at is buffing HE grenades. I think it would be interesting if you could hold 2, honestly. I know that would like make a lot of games go fucking crazy, but I think knowing lineups in Counter-Strike and being really good at utility kind of sets it apart from other tactical shooters. Valorant, it kind of streamlines a lot more of the utility. I'm not too familiar with how Rainbow Six Siege works, but I know it's like you learn which walls people sit behind and you blow up those particular walls. It's a similar concept to Counter-Strike where you have to just have a stupid amount of game knowledge to get the most out of it. But like I said earlier, I think it would be very interesting if you could just skill diff people with nades by yourself. Not by yourself, but like you have 2 or 3 people coordinated and they all have 6 HE grenades together. That's going to be a nightmare. So I think it would be interesting to change how people play. I think it would stop early aggression, which I'm really tired of seeing, especially in matchmaking, because like the round will start and at a minute 45 you'll have a 3v5 and you're retaking immediately. It would just be really neat to limit people's over aggressiveness whenever it's not necessary and it doesn't help. Next I want to talk about some of the maps that I want to see added in the operation. For the most part, a lot of these have been rumored and like soft confirmed as being worked on for the game at some point in the near future, whether it's the operation or just some other random addition down the line. The first map that I'd like to see added permanently to the game through the operation would be Train. I think that map has some of the most interesting gameplay, defense versus offense wise, compared to any of the other maps I'm going to mention, especially in pro play. It's one of the most historical Counter-Strike maps. Train is as much Counter-Strike as Dust 2 and Inferno, in my opinion. It's been there for about as long as any other map in 1.6. A lot of the people who play the game are probably younger than Train as an idea for a map. And Train being there permanently means it would be replacing another map permanently, and I think the best candidate to get rid of, to start working on like an actual remake, is Mirage. It's kind of gone down the Dust 2 route of just being so played out that like it's not interesting to watch anymore. It's the map that had the least work done on it in the transition between CSGO and CS2. It's, in my opinion, it's just the best candidate to get the old spit shine. Now these next maps, I would be interested to see in the operation with the possibility of it sticking around as maybe like a not active duty map. A map like Cache. Cache is a little bit played out. It's a really simple map, but I think the simplicity really plays into its own hand for Cache. And just for like matchmaking's sake, having a much simpler map compared to like Overpass or Anubis, like my teammates don't know how to play the game, and I would like to give them a chance to just like play a dumb simple map. And By dumb simple, I don't mean to like disparage FM Pwn or anything. It's like, it's as simple as it gets, and it's really good because of it, is what I mean. Talking about FM Pwn, if you've been keeping up with a lot of the Counter-Strike creators, a lot of them have been talking about and playing on DE Thera. That's FM Pwn's remake of his old map, Santorini, based in Greece. Beautiful map. Looks like it plays like a traditional tac shooter map, something that you would think of as like, just pure layout-wise, you would think of it as a Counter-Strike map. And watching people play test it through various means, it looks like an actual map. A lot of stuff has been thought out thoroughly, and FM Pwn is one of my favorite mappers just because he has a soft spot for the movement community. He always has, and there's always cool stuff in his maps that you can do, like on Cash, self-boosting off of the door into Shroud, self-boosting into mid from CT side on Cash. Thera has a couple cool skill jumps that you can do out of the window in mid into the B bomb site, jumping like off the map and back in like on Vertigo. The final map I want to talk about, and this is my biggest copium pick just because I'm an older Counter-Strike player and I miss this map. I would love to see DE Season get the same kind of remake treatment that Thera's gotten. I believe if there was anyone to work on Season, it would be FM Pwn. I believe he worked on the previous version and Go that was played on like Faceit and Sivo and stuff. There are a couple like glaring spots on, I think it's the B bomb site, where it's like it doesn't feel completely finished if you were familiar with it on Go. So if you just gave it like a soft rework, but it was like the same like heart and spirit of Season, I would love to see a map like that. And then obviously we've had hints of it in the files for forever. I would love to see Cobblestone come back. I would love to see the version that was like the first major update of Cobblestone, where they got rid of that weird like view part in mid where you could see into the outside courtyard on the T side, and where they fixed the B bomb site so it wasn't like a nightmare. I think that was the best version of Vertigo before they murdered the A bomb site and later remakes, and it was like a Halloween remake, I believe. That version of map, the A bomb site, wasn't good. They got rid of a couple of the routes to go to the bomb sites. Cobblestone was a giant map, and on Source 2 I imagine it probably won't run well if it is the same style as it was, and if it's as big as it was on Go. It was an interesting map. There are a lot of good games played on it pro-wise. There was a lot of good outplay potential on the map as well. It was a really good skill diff kind of map. All right, and the final thing that I want to talk about for the first operation is just like some general additions that I'd like to see, just in terms of like quality of life and other game modes and shit. First thing, I'd like to see a second option for deathmatch where it's a little bit more akin to community servers, just in terms of like the pace and the limiting of certain weapons. If you're like me and you're just kind of still holding out for the game to have enough updates where it doesn't feel terrible, and you're just playing for your drops, or playing through Valve Deathmatch if you don't want to play a comp game to get your XP. Sometimes it's just like an unbearable experience. There'll be people camping with T-sided auto snipers. It's like, why would you ever have that equipped in the first place? And you'll see a lot of people trying to win Deathmatch in Valve Deathmatches, and it's just, I don't like the spirit of that. I understand people are there getting XP, but I try to approach Valve Deathmatch the same way I approach Community Deathmatch, of just like holding W, trying to get as many fights in as possible, get my aim feeling good. It kind of is a warm-up, but also like getting my experience. I just think I would feel a lot more welcomed playing Valve servers if there was stuff that would accommodate players who don't want to play against people with 50 hours sitting behind the box on Plat on Dust 2 with an MP5 playing People's Invulnerability. And that's part of it too, is like the pace in community servers is just a ton faster. The spawns spit you out faster. There is an immunity that you can cheese where like you see someone's just camping you and you buy it up because you don't like people watching you when you spawn. I think we could just circumvent that whole thing, is just get rid of that delay and make people go faster. And I understand part of the reason why they wouldn't want to do that is like people could get a lot of XP really fast. I would take less overall XP per kill if the gameplay wasn't dreadful in Deathmatch. I really would. If I still got XP and it was a better experience, but it was less XP, I think that would be a fair trade. And then in addition to that, like to tie into the operation, I would love to see like operation missions that tell you, hey, take 25,000 steps in Deathmatch. Just get people moving in that game mode. The point of that game mode is to just get into as many fights as possible, and not a lot of people are playing it like that. They're playing it kind of scared. I think we need to get people out of their shells in that respect, especially with newer players. Like the point of the game is to get into fights and to win gunfights. And if you're playing Deathmatch uncomfortable getting into gunfights, gunfights and not wanting to get into gunfights. It's not the experience that the game should be giving you. And talking about non-competitive game modes, I'd love to see the rest of the War Games game modes be added on top of Arms Race, as well as all the maps that would go with them, like Lake and St. Marcos or St. Mark or whatever it's called, the one on the beach. I'd love to see Flying Scoutsman back and Demolition, and even if it's not game modes that I play all the time, I'd love for non-skilled players to have a place to go and to interact with people on Counter-Strike that doesn't result in people losing elo, so there's less of a chance of people screaming at them for no reason, you know, because that's something I participate in. I will let people know when they're bad, and I don't think a lot of really bad players deserve that, even if they are bad and sometimes need to hear it, just to like come to the realization of like, this is a competitive game, it's a team game, and if you don't perform for your team, they will let you know. And just new players need a place to exist on the game and think that they're having fun just doing whatever, and then the competitive players are playing the competitive game modes. And sticking with the game mode stuff, another game mode that I'd like to see, jumping back to the first point I was making about the new guns, if we're going to start copying Call of Duty in one respect in terms of game modes, I think it would be interesting to see a hardpoint style game mode in Counter-Strike where it still functions like a free-for-all deathmatch, like what we have in the game already, but it's like hardpoint King of the Hill, where like there's one spot where like you get bonus points for standing in the one spot, and everybody wants to go get there to stand in the one spot, and it just causes a lot of natural gunfights to happen. I think it would open up a bigger opportunity to have other maps other than Dust 2 and Mirage being played in that kind of format and not feel terrible. Because like playing deathmatch on Nuke doesn't feel good. Playing deathmatch on Vertigo is mid as fuck. Mirage and Dust 2 really feel like really good deathmatch maps, and then playing on competitive, it's kind of dreadful. But having a natural reason to play something that's basically deathmatch that just tells you to move on other maps, I think it would just set up a lot of natural gunfights where you get to practice taking different fights in different spots. The hill or the hard point moves across the map during the game. I think it would be really interesting. Now this is my biggest ask, my biggest want. I've mentioned it before in other servers, but if you live in the middle of the US, you know that connecting to servers is just kind of a nightmare. I live near Dallas in Texas, and the closest server that I can get most of the time is an Atlanta server. And it says 30 ping, I don't believe it. And in Counter-Strike 2, the way that it is now with the hit registration, having less than 20 ping is one of the biggest boons you can have as a player. There's like an awkward zone between like 25 and like 40 ping where like the hit registration doesn't feel as precise as it could be, and you don't really get much advantage from peaker advantage. Less than 20, you have pretty decent hit registration most of the time. I've played on Dallas servers for community deathmatch and have like 7 ping. It's like, oh, maybe it's not a problem with the hit registration. It's just a problem with like the ping itself and the way servers are interpreting stuff and how dependent it is on ping. And when you're above like 45 ping, above 50 ping, the higher your ping is, the more advantage you get from peaker advantage. And that's kind of historically always been the case in shooter games in general. High ping is going to help with peaker advantage. And like as a solution for someone like in California, being friends with someone with Florida, queuing together, one of them is going to get screwed. So like you land in an LA server, the California guy has like 10 ping, Florida guy is going to have like 60, and that's going to feel bad. But if connect them both to like a Dallas server, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Kansas City, somewhere just like smack dab in the middle. Dallas kind of makes the most sense because it's where the people are mostly compared to the other places. Connecting the Florida guy and the California guy to a Dallas server, they have about the same ping, and that's coming from across the country. Next thing I'm still pretty passionate about, like the last thing, was just kind of in a different direction, and I've been clamoring for this for years at this point. I would love to see an option to just turn off cosmetics client side, because the problem that I've ran into in the last couple of years playing Counter-Strike is I don't like seeing unskilled players with new cars worth of inventories. It's disheartening to me on like a societal level that like these people who have like 300 hours in a game and they don't know how to play it and at an adequate level have like a $10,000 blue gem AK case hardened. And like the perspective that I'm coming from here isn't that of like, I was never like burned gambling on Counter-Strike. I did some when I was a minor because everyone who gambles on Counter-Strike gambles as a minor. I got over it because I'm just not a gambler. I had skins, but then I cashed out because I was like, this is stupid, and I needed the money at the time. It's very disheartening seeing somebody who's like not even that committed to a game, like 250 hours, having inventories where the dollar amount is like 5 times as many hours as they have. It doesn't make sense to me, frankly. And I've found myself getting really frustrated at just that in particular, where I see somebody with like a themed inventory, and it's like a yellow themed inventory, one of the more expensive colors to do a theme with, and then they rush down mid on Inferno every round with an MP9 because they keep force buying and dying immediately. It's like, it doesn't even seem like they know what game they're playing, but they've spent more time researching skins than actively like doing anything that could possibly make you get better at the game. And I think if I had the ability to turn off cosmetics and skins and player agents, if I saw somebody play bad, I'd be like, oh man, that was a misplay. And then I'd get over it because there's not like that layer of like, this person made an awful financial decision on top of not being good at a video game. Alright, thank everybody for watching this video. Thank you for bearing with me until the end. It's kind of a longer one. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If there's anything that I missed, stuff that you think that was interesting, that you agree with me, disagree, let me know. I'm down to start meaningful discussions about the game in the comments. We start getting disrespectful, I'll hit you with the I'm not responding hammer, or I'll say yo mama. That's one of my favorite replies to disrespect online. It's just saying yo mama. If y'all like these kinds of videos, please do subscribe to the channel. I plan on making more videos of me yapping, whether it's this format, whether it's a tutorial or a deep dive. I like talking about Counter-Strike. I like talking about Counter-Strike kind of more than I like playing it in the current state that it's in. And I'm gonna keep making the frag movies. I think I'm actually getting a handle of how to edit them and make it look like an adequate video. My brain is getting bigger. My video is getting better, and the more subscribers I get, the more happy I am. Bigger number, better person. Anyway, thanks for watching again, and I'll see y'all in the next video. I don't know what I'm gonna be doing, but Counter-Strike.